Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts and on most social media platforms. Excuse me, let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. We're going to get right into it. We got a special guest, Mr. Twitter famous Robert Z. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a round of applause if you can. Give him a rah, oorah, hoo ya, whatever have you. Robert, go ahead and say hi to listeners for us.
Hello, everybody. And you said famous. I think you meant infamous. That might be more appropriate for some of my class.
I like that the infamous Robert Z. Hey, thank you for taking the time and coming on and sharing your story and your adversity, resilience, and way to give back to the community. So I appreciate your time. It's precious to me. I'm sure it's precious to you. So we're gonna get right into it because none of us are getting paid for this. Maybe you are. Well, I kind of am, right? I'm salary, so we'll see. Either
There
way,
you go.
go ahead. Brief bio, military bio, where you're from, where you're born, raised, family, kids, whatever have you. What duty stations did you get to experience? Deployments, things of that nature. Right?
All right. Out of high school, I was born and raised outside of Columbus, Ohio. Once I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Really, my I was the first in my family to not go right to college from both grandparents down. I knew that, well, I wasn't the best person, and I definitely wasn't the best student growing up. So I knew going to college would be a wasted opportunity. I knew in the future it'd be likely, but I needed to buy some time. And the Marine Corps was just calling my name really because it was the most intense out of all the options. I really wanted the challenge. So I joined the Marine Corps. I was young. I graduated at 17, just the way my birthday falls. So I turned 18 in boot camp, which was an interesting birthday. That was in 97. I became an airframe mechanic. So my first duty station was Miles 29, New River. I was there for about 5 years. I did one deployment in 2003. So that was the initial wave into Iraq. We were on the 24th MEU. It was supposed to be a 6 month deployment, then a 7 month, then it turned into 9 months. So it was quite an experience. When we got back, I got orders to a reservist station up in Norfolk, Virginia, with the 46 Squadron, which I thought was great. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I'd been going to college throughout the whole time. And I get there, and I think I was there for about 3 months, and they got activated, and I got to deploy again. Been another 7 months in Al Assad. So when I got back from that deployment, I had just finished my bachelor's degree. I came home a week before my second daughter was born, and I loved the Marine Corps, and I knew basically if I was going to stay in, I was going to become an officer. So with the deployments being what they were, and my daughter just being born, I figured out, well, I'll try the civilian world for a little bit, and if I come back in, I'll go through OCS and basically be starting over anyways through OCS regardless. So I got out, got a job as a production supervisor, and that was through some networking through the Marine Corps, just through the Marine Corps. So I got my first job as a production supervisor thanks to a Marine reaching out and working with me and helping me, giving me a shot. The civilian world's a lot different. I was still debating. I was thinking, well, maybe reserves, but where I was working basically every other weekend. And then if I went in the reserves, it'd be 3 weekends out of a month that I'd be gone from my family. And one of the main reasons getting out of the military was because I wanted to spend more time with my family. Anyways, long story short, I bounced. Well, I didn't bounce. I moved around to different positions. I went back to school and got my, used the GI Bill and got my MBA. So I was working full time and going to school full time, utilizing that. While I was doing all that, we continued to build our family. So I now have four daughters from the ages of 6 to 20. I guess that's like the down and dirty of my background. I'm now in Lean Six Sigma continuous improvement professional. So I don't know where do you want to go? What do you want to ask me? Dive into
Well,
more questions?
that's a great bio. I appreciate it. That's kind of a short span once you come back from deployment PCS to the reserve unit and then right back at it again. I mean, it makes sense. But then I was like, oh, that's unexpected as well, right? Because you were thinking non-deployable, this, that,
Yeah,
and the
no,
other, and
I was like,
then
this is gonna be great. I'll be living in Virginia Beach because I was in Jacksonville that whole time. And yeah, the first couple months, and there was rumors that we might get activated, and sure enough, so it was like,
how many kids were you deep at that point? The first one
I
you
was
said?
the first deployment. We didn't have any children. The second deployment, I had one, and my wife was pregnant with my
Two.
second.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that you're here and well and alive for your family, for the four daughters. No more? No sons?
No, no, just four daughters, and the fourth one when we were deciding on if we wanted to have a fourth. It's like, well, maybe you'll get a son this time. I was like, no, no, I know how this works. It's gonna be a fourth daughter, but so we made that decision because we were getting older, and it was like, well, we either need to shit or get off the pot if we're gonna have another kid. So
That's funny because the same. This is kind of the same situation. Not really, right? We had a very young. I have a 16-year-old turning 17 this year, and then I have a 13-year-old, and then we have a huge gap between 13 and my youngest daughter, Ariel, which is 3, who is 3, and then my son, who just turned 1 in September 11th. What a birthday! And then we're on number 5, expected to be born the last week of February. That we're placing wagers now, either on our anniversary on the 23rd or my wife's birthday on the 27th. We'll see. But you could definitely hit them hit them pots, 50 up, 50 down kind of thing. But yeah, what is it? Girl, boy, girl. So
yeah,
it's been fortunate. So I got some boys in there, right? I wanted
yeah,
7 off the rip, right? But that 13-year gap definitely drains you. We're Slade. I'm 36, she's 38, and we're kind of like, well, maybe we should slow down.
yeah,
We'll see what happens though. We'll see. We're not in control, obviously, because the 13-year gap, right? It's not what we want. It's when the big man upstairs has it for us. So either way, we're
absolutely.
grateful. But I got to ask, you went from bachelor's in we'll start there. You went from bachelor's while you were in, and then you got out, right? If it didn't work out, you would come back in as an officer. Obviously, that didn't pan out. You got your master's in business associate, right? Business administration or something like that, right? MBA.
Yep, yep.
It obviously worked out for you. At what point during that time, during that season, did it work out? And you're like, yeah, it's probably not. You're not going that way anymore.
It was difficult. It was probably I'd been out for maybe 3 years, maybe a little longer before I finally decided, okay, I'm not gonna go back in. I'd been meeting with the recruiters, and at one point I started really seriously entertaining going in the Air Force as an officer. So short, kind of funny story. It's probably my third visit with the recruiter, and where the paperwork was going, and it was looking like that was the direction that was going to happen. Every time I went to the recruiter, because he was an enlisted guy, he'd say something that would just get under my skin. He just like he dismisses his medals, and he was really focused on my weight because I was like, I mean, I'm way overweight now, but at the time I might have been maybe 5 pounds over the max, and I'm like, come on, like I can drop 5 pounds. Like that's not going to be an issue. Don't worry, I'll get it. But he kept harping on it. And then, yeah, the last time I visited him, I said something about the barracks, and he said it just like this. He goes, "We don't live in barracks. We live in dormitories." And then I was like, "Okay, I'm done. I can't. If I'm an officer and I got 20 you pukes looking through, I'm like, no, I can't do that." So that was I was like, all right, I'm not gonna entertain the Air Force. That's just it's either Marine Corps or nothing. Yeah, no, it was a difficult decision, and even now to this day, I think back, if I were to redo it, would I do it differently? And I don't think I would, but it's one of those things I don't think I would, right? It was a really difficult decision. Years later, so I had a couple of friends that stayed in, both on the same route as me, where we got our bachelor's degree while we we're in, and they became officers. And one had retired as a captain, and he had visited me once or twice while he was in, just because I'm not too far from DC. And when he retired, I met up with him probably a year or two later, and yeah, we stopped by where he lives in Georgia, and I was talking to him, and I was like, "Yeah, I should have stayed in. I should have stayed in." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "All those years, I thought you were the one that did it the right way." And it was really like, ouch,
Wow.
'cause he's like, I felt trapped. He's like, because I'd been in, after 12 years, it's like you gotta stay, and he's like, I felt trapped, and I was always looking at you like you did it the right way, and it's kind of that. the grass isn't greener on the other side; it's greener where you water it. So, it was
Mm,
kind of eye opening. It's like, all right, yeah. So I felt a little bit better about my decision after that conversation because it was just like, okay, yeah, it's a different perspective. Because I mean, it's
that's a
sacrifice, the deployments and everything else. I got to stay home with my family. We moved a lot, but I was still with my kids and didn't have to do all that kind of stuff. So
no, no, I get you. That's actually a good thing. We're gonna weave it back in right back to you, Robert, here in a second. But you talk about it's the grass is not greener on the other side. It's where you water it. Unfortunately, the captain, your buddy, wasn't watering it. But at the same time, we got to think. At the 10-year mark, it's pretty valid. The statement is valid. It's like you got to consider either you're gonna stay in for the remainder of the time, or it's the time to get out because you're no more obligated service. I'm sure you probably done, maybe half the Marine Corps has already done an SDA, or at least your peers, right? Blah blah. But right around that time should have been your time to like consider to get out, and it is true. I mean, for you, the grass was greener where you watered it. I mean, you put in the work, you put in the time, and look, it's paying dividends. And I hate. I would like to have a conversation with your buddy and kind of see what where his mindset and where it deterred or where did it start declining. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say like he was miserable, but I think he was where I was envious of his retirement. I think he was envious of my ability to stay at home with the kids and that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't like a disdain for the Marine Corps. It was just, it's that whole, hell, if I went back in time, what would I do different? So,
Well, I would say, Robert, that if I wouldn't regret it if I was you, because look, you're 4 kids deep, MBA, very successful. I love your man cave. We got to show it here eventually, right? Eventually, because if
kind of
you
a
if you
mess right
didn't see
now.
it, and I had a mess, no mess, but it's Air Marine Corps. You know what I mean? Like I would love to have that man cave in the basement. So we'll see it right now, folks, if you're listening. But transitioning, you said it was 4 years after you got out, and you were still considering. Is it because you were that thoroughly indoctrinated to love and core and country, Iran, right? That you were still considering coming back?
The short answer would be yes, in addition to the brotherhood. So
Mm,
I don't know how many times since I've been out where the guys I served with, we'd cross paths and it was just like we hadn't seen each other in 2 weeks. There's just so many situations where we're driving, we did a family trip out to the Dakotas, and on the way back through Facebook, one of the guys I used to work with was in Illinois, and I'm like, hey, we're driving through. I reached out to him. You think we could stop by? He's like, oh yeah. And so we stopped by his house. We stayed outside just catching up and shooting the shit until I want to say 3 a.m. Um, and then his oldest son was out there with us the majority of the time. And his oldest son, like a day or two later, said, "You know what? I want to join the Marine Corps. I want to have that kind of love." Like
wow. Yeah.
it was just like we picked up where we left off. Yeah, the guy that I was talking about earlier that retired, we stopped by him down in Georgia. We were on a trip. He's come to our house a few times. Lieutenant Colonel Perez, who you're aware of, he's been over a lot.
Okay.
We're so close that my third daughter was, I want to say she was 10 or 11 years old, and she said, now is Uncle Freddie like your real brother or not? And I was like, no. And I was like, well, yeah, he is. He's your uncle.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Yeah. And yeah, and I can't. So that brotherhood, that family. I mean, you deploy with some people, or just even not deployment, even those first few years where you're E1 through junior E4, you get a bond that it's unbreakable, right? So it was
it.
it
Yeah.
was it was the pride of being a Marine plus that brotherhood that was really challenging to leave.
Interesting. Did it affect you in a way where it affected your family or it affected you as an individual for a little bit?
I would say it still affects me, but in good and bad ways. I mean, yes, right. So some of the experiences are not good and they're not positive, but it's that whole, if you don't experience the real nastiness, then it's by experiencing real nasty bad things, you can find a deeper appreciation for the good things. So so yeah, it impacts me. There's some I don't know,
I
it
see.
impacts me, but it'd be like a growth, right? So
Yeah,
I feel I'm stronger and better because of all the things that have happened. So
of course.
and I was never like I was in Iraq, but I was never like in the real shit, right? So they launched mortars at us, and that was about it. But so like I saw like deep combat like a lot of other guys, but still just eating the sand, knowing that nasty country and
Yes.
being a family for months on a time and it's challenging.
I agree. I agree. That's a good statement. If you didn't experience the bad things, you wouldn't take appreciation for the good things. It's the small things that matter. It's the small things that build up that you really consider like, is this even worth it? I don't need it, but I want to. And I think you were at a position where like, yeah, I don't need it. I just want to stay in it. But the need was to be around, to be available for your family. So that's a good decision to make. So I do appreciate that for those that are listening. And men, right? Men, husbands, fathers, if you got that, you're at that like that tipping point where like, should I stay in? Should I stay out? Well, obligations and priorities, right? You should never need the organization that you're in. You should want to be in because it's something you're passionate about. So that's where I'm at, but that's not everybody's cup of tea either. So
Yeah,
do I,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So
it's a decision everybody's got to make. I mean, if you do 4 years or you do 30, whatever. It's yeah. It goes back to wherever you choose to be, just water that grass, right? Because
yeah,
you know you're you're in it. So
that's true. That's true. Hey, how did you get into, well, first, let's weave it back, right? There's a lot of things to weave in here. Robert, you said Lieutenant Colonel Freddie Perez, right? We had him on the podcast a couple weeks ago, a couple times already. He's a repeat offender. And so how did you get there? And then how did you get where you're at now with your current career?
well, so my current career, it's been, I guess, because of the leadership traits, instilled in the Marine Corps. I think that carried over directly, especially under the not necessarily the trait, but just the concept of working to replace, your senior. Like you're always working to become that next rank and replace, right? So it's that whole concept. If the staff sergeant fails, the sergeant's going to step right in and take charge, and it's that whole concept. So I guess I just naturally was always working at being proficient or extremely good at whatever my responsibilities were, but then seeking opportunities to get additional opportunities.
Yeah,
So
for
or
growth.
additional responsibilities. So and that goes, I tell you what, just trying in the civilian world, the amount of people that don't try and they're scared is mind-boggling. And the amount of people that just they won't, even if they know what's right, they're like, well, it's not my responsibility. The book Take a Message to Garcia,
Hmm.
I've I've probably purchased that book. I mean, it's a little book. I probably got it laying around here somewhere. I know I got it somewhere, but I've given that to so many civilians because it's just like, just get it done. Like, just go do it. You know what you need to do. Just go do it. And they don't try. I mean, granted, there's some Marines that get out and they don't try either. They, but yeah, so I just keep pushing and just trying to do really good at what I'm supposed to do, and then a little bit more. And so for a while there, it was really chasing some additional educational opportunities. So and that was challenging, right? Because it's working full, especially my MBA. So I was working I was working a lot of shift work at that time. So I was working second shift, third shift. I was rotating, and then I was taking the majority of the classes online. Like when I was working second shift, I'd get home about midnight, I'd study until 2 or 3 a.m. I literally slept in the closet for a few months because we had two kids at home and another one on the way. But just doing that extra and that reflected at my day-to-day job. And then it helped sow the seeds and open up a ton of doors.
Mm,
So, and then my current role that I'm in now, I really enjoy it. And I didn't know that. So I started doing this position, the Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, continuous improvement. I want to say 2016-ish. I think that's when I got my black belt. But I didn't even really know this position existed 4 or 5 years prior to me doing it. So it was just you just keep to try to do better and things work out. If there's one thing I can tell people is show up a little bit early and try really hard. And I guess the other thing would be have integrity. So anytime you mess up, jump on that sword, own it, and do whatever you can to fix it. And you don't, you don't like. There's so many times I don't even feel I'm that good, but because I try so hard, it just I can compensate my lack of skill by overworking it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's
Or
true. Put
lack.
in the time. I hear there's a saying, I forget the somebody who said, I don't know what exact saying, but put in the work early so that when you're in the shoes that you're in, you can, maybe take a ease off the pedal a little bit, but at the same time, like you put in the work early. That's why, 45 and above, it's like you see them, or mid early 50s, you're like see them in a Maserati, a G wagon, like they put in the time early, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
I did,
So
so it
I'm
pays
also a
dividends
big
later on, right?
fan of financial management. Anybody listening, Dave Ramsey, follow Dave Ramsey. And one of his sayings is live like nobody else so you can live like nobody else now so you can live like nobody else later. And the concept's really just live within your means, spend less than you make, invest now, and then when you're later on comes, you'll be all right. You'll be able to live like nobody else later. And that later is getting closer and closer for me. So yeah,
I mean, granted, you look the same age as me, so you look great for 36.
yeah.
I just kidding.
Well,
But how did you
my
cross?
wife would say I'm still 26, but the way I act.
Don't they all say that after you jump on that wagon for a little bit? You
Yeah.
act like a child sometimes. When I'm around my brothers, absolutely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
it's like a bunch of Lance Corporals, basically. But how did you cross paths with Lieutenant Colonel Perez?
Well, we checked in Mal's 29 around the same time together in 98, 99-ish. So I'm not even sure which one was first, who got there first. But yeah, we were both airframers at the same time. I think I was a PFC, he was a Lance Corporal. Um, and
That's
so we became
wild.
friends. The character that Perez has, there was a night where I was out, I was drinking underage, and I had way too much to drink. And at that time, we didn't have cell phones, but we had our recall roster, in our wallet. And wherever I was, I called him. And I woke up the next day on an air mattress in his living room. His oldest daughter, like, I woke up to his oldest daughter running out and then just like hitting the brakes, seeing me, like, who's this guy? But yeah, so that's his character, right? It could have been 3 a.m. I don't know, but he got up out of bed, came and got me, and made me a bed in his living room, and I mean, we're obviously friends prior to that, but yeah, we've been close. We've crossed paths a lot of times. We deployed. We did
Yeah.
one deployment, the 24th MEU. We were on the 24th MEU together. That was that. That was the MEU that God forgot, right? That was a crazy deployment. It's really one for the records, right? So the deployment was mountains, snow mountains of Kosovo, desert, Djibouti, Kenya, or and then we went into Iraq. It was just like every climbing place. It was the whole 9 yards, right? So yeah, and then that deployment that kept getting extended. And we got the first orders where it's like, all right, we're going. You're getting extended. We're going to war, and basically we were sitting on in the med in case something happened, and then all hell broke loose in Fallujah. So they're like, all right, you guys are going in, and it's indefinite your extension. So,
Nice.
but yeah,
That's
we
awesome, though. Small world. Look, I'll tell you what, I have you on, I had him on, and then small world, we've been back together. I know Robert indirectly through Lieutenant Colonel Perez. Isn't that wild? That's crazy. All right.
yep.
I think that tells you about our gun club. It's kind of small.
It is in the connection. So where I'm at now, we moved here about 10 years ago. We moved around a lot, and then just my daughters went to school, and her friend's dad was a Marine. And so for the last probably 5 years, there's two local Marines that we never served together, but every year we do something together for the Marine Corps birthday. So whether it's here in the man cave, we cleaning our rifles, drinking whiskey, or going out for beer. One year we got all dressed up and took our wives out.
Shoot. COP, the rifle never gets old.
No, I tell you what, man. So yeah, we're we're old farts now. I'm the fattest of all. They're all still in shape and make me look dumb, but yeah, no, we literally we grab our rifles and we sat around the poker table drinking beer and whiskey, cleaning our rifles for hours.
That's so
Yeah.
wild. Oh, that's
But I mean,
crazy.
that's the thing about the brotherhood, right? These guys I never met before, meet them one or two times, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, let's go hang out and have the birthday together, right? And so,
It's definitely different than the other branches. I'll tell you what, ours, because ours is so small, it makes that connection just so much deeper. Because I know, just like you said, right, that those bonds that you create, they're long lasting. First duty station, second duty station, you get a privilege to do an SDA, and then those bonds are even deeper. And now, 15 years later, it's like you can call them up for whatever advice, and because you got to be humble. You never know all the answers, right? So you got to always call somebody, and that's where it's at. You call them, and it's just right where you left off. And if you ever cross paths with them, the ones that got out early, the ones that got out later, or retired before you, it's just like I can do a road trip real quick when I'm PCS and be like, drop by all maybe 25 plus states to see them every single one on the way out, and it'd just be an amazing experience, right? It's quite a road trip, but good for you, Robert. Good for you, man. I appreciate your service. Thank you for your service, first and foremost, right? And
yeah,
it looks like
absolutely.
you're in a good headspace, good way forward for you and your family. And talk about this man cave that you got going back there. You showed me before we started recording. The viewers and the listeners, check this out. Like the
All
background, what do
right,
you got right there? You
all
got
right. So
books for days.
that's a a plaque when I left Mouse 2.9 is the tail rotor blade of a
Yeah.
Cobra. So on the back of it, everyone signed it, and then the machine shop made that K bar. Uh, the black belt, that's Lean Six Sigma black belt through work. But then on this side here, it's just all the stuff I collected over the 9 years I was in. A lot of we got married as a corporal, so at the 4 year mark, I married my wife. We've been married for 23, 24 years now. Um, some of the good books and a lot of pictures. And then, oh God, I don't even know if I want to
Hey,
show it.
you gotta show it. You gotta show it, Robert. You showed me. They gotta show them.
All right, so that's the mess of the wall. It's usually in a lot better shape, but I mean, it is the basement.
Oh my God, that's what I
Um,
want to have later on. Is that netting? What is that? Right there in the corner of the edge of the wall. Is
yeah,
that
that's just
mesh?
netting.
Oh, that's awesome. Every Marine should have a man cave in their basement that looks like.
Something, some place to just at least have a couple things. Yeah, I got there's some pretty cool stuff that I have hanging up there. I put a collage. I'm
Good
trying to
memories.
zoom in on the two long things. It's just a collage of all the money and stuff from the different countries I visited.
That's dope.
It's just yeah, it's just a lot of it's cool. It's good conversation pieces and it's in the back part of the basement, so it's my wife doesn't show up too often, and it's only when guys are over and we're having a drink or two that we come down here.
That's awesome, dude. Either way, that is wild. It's wild to weave back in. Robert did you did nine. Lieutenant Colonel Freddie Perez is doing. He's at what 26? I think 27 around there ish.
Something like
Uh,
that. Yeah, he's
something like that,
97.
right there. Thoroughly indoctrinated devil dog right there. And then
He's a
you
warrior,
know,
man. That guy.
yeah, I met him in Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni when he was a major. I think he was a major, maybe a captain. I'm not sure. I don't remember what he was at in Iwakuni, but we crossed paths there through a friend of mine, Nando Hernandez, when they used to hang out on the side. And then, I was a sergeant at the time, and you know how small duty stations are. They're pretty tight knit families. Everybody
Yeah,
knows each other because we're so far away from home. We crossed paths there. I challenged him. I don't know what I challenged him for, but then we got into deep conversation and kind of went back and forth. I'm right, you're right, he's wrong, I'm wrong, kind of thing. And
yeah.
then we never stopped talking. Never stopped talking after that. Never stopped talking. We do. I haven't seen him in a while, but definitely, hopefully, he's staying out in Japan. Did he tell you that?
Yeah. He loves it there. I think he might when he retires. I don't know if he'll come back to the states.
I don't think so. I don't think so. He loves it too. He's probably Japanese at the heart. So we'll see. If you're listening, Freddie, hey, uh, chime in. But anyways, I got to give me an example. Right, you did back-to-back deployments, so back-to-back duty stations. The time between was definitely. I mean, you wouldn't know it now, but thinking back now, while you were in. You probably didn't know it, but now that you think about it, there was some adversity. And how did you overcome that adversity? And what did you do to be resilient in that situation from back-to-back deployments, back-to-back duty stations, 0 kids to 2 kids? There's a lot going on there, a lot of priorities,
Yeah.
obligations
Yeah.
that change from one time to the other. Hit that piece for me.
Well, I'm a proud Christian. I'm not the best, so I fall short all the time. But leaning on my faith is definitely key. And my wife would be the other part of that equation. She's made so many sacrifices just to hold the fort down between the deployments, and then deal with my nonsense. When I was home, and we were young when we got married. I was 20, or I was 21. She was 20. So we grew up. We grew up a lot together. Um, but yes, I would say focusing on my faith and then focusing on my relationship with her, because anybody who's been married more than a year or two knows that it can get rough. And that's the same thing. You gotta water the grass, right? You gotta invest in it. If you don't take care of the small things, then the small things become big things, right? It's
Mm,
you don't
that's
you don't
good.
just wake up one day and your yard's brown, right? It takes a while. And they're even taking care of a car, right? You don't wake up one day and the bumper just falls off. It takes years of rust to build up. And if you address that stuff, when it just starts getting a little brown, or you start getting, a little salt on the car, if you wash it off then, it, yeah, it's a pain in the butt to wash it off. But, you focus on those things and focus on the small things, and the big things, they stay away. So, yeah, so it'd be that teamwork between my wife and me, and then my faith first, and then the teamwork.
That's good, Robert. I got to hit that point too. I got to agree with you there. Being in 15 years, you spend a lot of time away from your immediate family, which is my wife and my kids, right? I had one before the Marine Corps. I had another one immediately after coming in as a young PFC Lance Corporal. And then, I had my other three recently here in Hawaii and Washington back to back. But people don't understand, at least those who haven't served, right? They don't understand that they don't sign up for all the baggage that the organization has, right? Going on deployments, going on TAD every so often, being away from the family, and they didn't sign up for being basically a single parent at times, right? They
Absolutely.
signed up to be with a significant other for the rest of their life, and I got to give it to the spouses, right? Man,
My
we
wife
do
was
a
part of
lot.
the Key Wives, which I think that's they named it something else, but that Key Network, that helped out a lot. So she was really active in that, and working with that group, and that helped out a lot between both of the deployments. It was, that was a good support group. So anybody out there, if your spouse is at home, have them get involved with that group. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely. I gotta add. You reap what you sow, right? You're sowing hard. You're sowing hard a lot, and you might not reap the benefits right away, but that hard work is going to pay dividends. Just like you, right? Overall, generally speaking, Robert, you're in a good space, good financial space, good family.
Yeah,
You got a 20-year-old down to what was the last age? I think it was. What was the youngest one?
6-year-old. You probably hear her in the background. Yeah,
I do
she's
hear.
6. Yeah, she's
That's
back there
awesome, right?
just not listening to me when I told her to stay out of here.
It's that hard work pays off, and look at you get to experience growth, and you get to experience different seasons. So if you're listening, definitely water that grass. It doesn't matter what grass it is, just water It'll pay dividends later on. So thank you for that story of adversity and resilience. I do appreciate it, because they do a lot. They do a lot. I give it to them every time. Every time I reenlist, that certificate of appreciation to the spouse means something. It's very small in a piece of paper, but when you really consider being thankful to people that hold it down while you're gone, it means a lot to them. Very small things mean a lot to spouses that, don't get acknowledged every day, even by us, right? We don't say thank you enough. And to let them know that piece of paper says a lot from a unit, says a lot from the organization that allows you to be in again and again. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. But, you know, not everybody struggling with adversity is resilient, right? And a lot of us that transition from uniform to civilian, it affects us up here, right? Because 12 on, 12 off for you, man. At the wing, it's 12 on, 12. Like deployment from day one, and you're not even on deployment. Is whack, right? It's horrible shifts. The night crew is even worse. You get huge, right? I know some buddies of mine, man, just struggle with weight because of what the shift they're on. They don't, and then they still expect them to perform PFT, CFT, all that, the whole shebang, right? Some of us struggle with adversity, and we're not resilient. And when we transition from uniform to civilian, we lose our mission set, we lose our task-oriented mindset, or just day-to-day ops, right? And we struggle. And a lot of the time, a lot of the suicide happens when we're in when we transition from uniform to civilian. Give them a tool for the toolbox for those that are listening now, struggling with mental health, and those that are listening that are not here with us right now. What could they have done different, or right, what can they do now
Well, I
to
think
prevent
the
something like that?
first thing is that I don't know where it's a shirt. It's a lot of people wear it, but on the back it says "I'm okay," but it's "I'm broken," and then the "okay" is bolded, and you can just barely make out the words. I mean, everybody's struggling, right? One form or another. So just acknowledging that you're not alone and that everybody's fighting demons, at some level, it's probably the first thing. So once you know you're not alone and you can start just reaching out and talking to people, whether it's through the VA. When I got out, the VA was crap. I mean, that was when people were literally killing themselves in the parking lot of the VA clinics. And but even outside of that, you still have your brothers that you can reach out to. You have family, you have friends. So just knowing that you're definitely not the only one by any stretch. So I think that's probably, if you can acknowledge that, then then you can reach out and work with others.
The first step is admitting that something's wrong, right?
Right.
That's good.
And
That's good.
something's wrong because, well, I mean, I think it's safe to say in general, all Marines are a little off. I mean, we are, right. We got to recognize there's a reason that we like to eat crayons, but we're all a little off. But so since we're all messed up, it's just reach out, keep up. One of my really close friends battled alcoholism bad. I hadn't seen him for a few years, and we went to another buddy's retirement, and I met up with him, and he looked horrible. He was very successful, but he just looked horrible. And so we celebrated the retirement, and then we stayed up just drinking and talking. And he had been drinking literally a 30-pack of beer every single day for months, if not years. And I'm like, that's like, to me, I was like okay, I don't even know. At my prime, during a crazy party, maybe, but he was doing it to sustain, and it was really concerning. But he talked to me about it. He talked to my buddy, the guy that retired, and then he went to the VA. He did it was like either a 30-day or 60-day. So he called us a day or two later saying, "Hey, you're not going to hear from me for a while. I'm checking myself in." And so he went into that. And since then, I haven't talked to him much. And in one of the conversations, it was really like, well, he doesn't like talking to me on the phone because it's almost like a trigger. Because every time he ever talked to me on the phone, it was always just drinking and basically all his memories with me. So it's like, listen, man, I would much rather not talk to you hardly ever at all and know that you're good than have to go to your funeral or something, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's plenty of resources out there. They're a lot better now than they were 10, 15 years ago. And then the brotherhood. I mean, like if anybody's struggling, reach out, talk to your buddies, or talk to just other Marines that, like the guys I told you about earlier. We don't really know each other, but if any one of us called each other, we'd be over there in a heartbeat. So
You got to remember, for those listening, you got to remember that we are brothers no matter what. And even if we don't serve together anymore or don't have the same duty station or mission set or operational tempo, that doesn't mean that we're still not brothers. You know what I mean? And so don't lose sight of that. Those that are listening, struggling with mental health, don't lose sight of that. Thank you, Robert, for that gouge. Good gouge. Communication. First step is admitting and then go and ask. Taking that 30-inch step. Brilliance in the basics, right? Hi.
here's my
Hi,
six
young
year old.
lady. Absolutely. She's more than welcome to come on. Hey, say hello to the listeners and the viewers. But Robert, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for allowing me to kind of step into your home and experience who you are and your story. I told you, trying to network with you. No story's too small, or too big, and the support that you guys give to us, right? And it pays dividends. So I appreciate your time. Appreciate you giving back. Appreciate you being available for brothers that you don't even know, but we served. That's all
Well,
that
yeah, and
matters.
that goes to, if somebody's listening to this and they need to reach out to me for just career advice, anything, feel free. Just reach out. You can find me on Facebook or X or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best way to find me. There's not very many Ziffs, so it's pretty
That's
easy to get
awesome.
a hold of.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for being available. Thank you for your opportunity again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gunny G and Robert Z, and we
Zip.
out.
Yeah. See
Zip.
ya.
Laters. I'll talk to you later, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.